Robert Plank Show, episode 341, Innovation and Growth Hacking. Tailor your marketing message to your audience using Facebook Messenger chatbots with Nick Kullin. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. So thanks for listening and tuning in. We're talking right now with Nick Kullin, and Nick is a fearless and eccentric young entrepreneur who always believed that inside of every successful self-made person is a poor kid who followed his dream. Nick started his entrepreneurial journey at a young age, and he built a growing success for himself without the need for a college degree and followed the unconventional path in life. So Mr. Nick, glad to have you on.
Hey man, I am totally stoked as our pre-conversation was talking about these new words to be on the show, man. It's really an honor to be speaking with you.
Awesome, right back at you. I mean, I'm stoked, excited, jazzed, whatever the throwers
Oh,
has
oh,
to say. And so, yeah, so your website is secondflightconsultancy.com, and I'm really curious about sort of like, what makes you stand out, or what kind of has you just excited in general these days?
yeah, man. The biggest thing that has me excited is the way this whole digital marketing, environment is changing, right? And the thing that kind of broke me out into this whole thing is really revolving around the whole growth hacker mentality, right? And it's really important. It's something actually that a lot of people are just missing out on. And I think it's one of those things when you look at just human behavior, when you got a few innovators out there who stumble upon a really unique thing that shows a lot of promise. It attracts the masses, but what ends up happening is that people just feel the need to just do something because everyone else is doing it, and then the innovation side of it starts to dwindle, right? And then what happens in that element is that when no one's being innovative, everyone's doing the same thing, things become more expensive, results become very, stagnant, and then people are just trying to figure out, like, why is it not working for me? And when I developed my agency, I really wanted to focus on being this like very non-conformist marketer who is figuring out the new and unique ways to leverage and be innovative and take advantage of platforms and even seek new methods of marketing online that could show high promise and yield. And I've been doing it honestly since I was like a young teenager, believe it or not. Just being this like non-conformist little badass, trying to figure out ways to make money online and figure out ways to take advantage of these new technologies.
Awesome. So it sounds like a fun way to, not only make money, but kind of like be unique and be expressive and all that kind of fun stuff. And so when you're talking about like, growth hacking and innovating and not being the same as everyone else, can you sort of give us some kind of example of that? That way we're all 100% sure we know what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So a good example of this is, just identifying, what makes your audience tick, right? Because ultimately that's what figures out what makes them click. And oftentimes, like using as a big example, everyone is talking about Facebook ads. Everyone and their mother is talking about Facebook ads now. And that's a great thing because people are starting to identify values in digital marketing, but at the same time, people just do not know how to appropriately use it right. And it comes the same with the B2C and B2B marketplace when they look at like that specific vertical. The problem is people are getting too close to their product and people are getting way too close to their service, and they're losing fact that on the person on the other end is a person. They're just not tapping into the psyche of what that person is going through. And they just think by shoving product and service and features down someone's throat is going to make them buy. But what I really try to infuse, especially with the clients I work with and the people who I even coach, is tapping more into like, okay, listen, there's a person on the other end of this thing. And what we need to do is tap more the psyche of like what keeps them up at night. What's the value benefit? Talk about, a relatable thing that they actually go through. And if that customer is relating through that, they're going to find your product as a solution because people on the internet, there's so much information out there, and majority of people, they look when they look at content, they don't look to learn something. They look to learn how to get out of something, more so for the fact. So whether it's a hair product and that hair product helps cover gray hair, people don't want to read about an article about how great your hair, how to make your hair look great. People are looking at an article of how can I make maybe a self-conscious thing that I'm dealing with go away. And that's the stuff that's more valuable. But oftentimes brands, marketers are just forgetting that point. And I am taking advantage of inefficiency in the market just by the way we're delivering these things, by just tapping into grassroots basic stuff. And then even just beyond that, just using Facebook as an example, everyone is doing it, right? Like I said, everyone and their mother. And the thing is, though, you don't need to be doing what everyone else is doing on Facebook. There's so many new delivery methods around how to make an ad go live. And one of the biggest things I know I'm focusing on right now is leveraging chatbots and creating chatbots that kind of supplement as your marketing and sales kind of like navigator to, drive leads and sales. And it's been shown to be great promise, primarily because no one has experienced it yet. Because yeah, I think we all could agree that as human beings, we see something flashy, and when we see it, enough, that flashiness becomes kind of dull, and we just ignore it. It doesn't catch our attention anymore, like billboards that you see on the side of the road, and even Google display ads. And as you keep going down the list, more and more, we're just not being trigger happy with making action on things that we see. So we always have to be innovative in this space and think of the new things and be one of the first to market in developing these new ideas and strategies. And that's exactly all I obsess about.
And there's so much good stuff in there, like you mentioned, and what sort of just like hits home a lot for me is I was hearing a lot of different kind of reminders as far as like those basic copywriting principles, which are like basic and simple, but some people either just aren't aware of them, or maybe they forgot to apply them, or like you said, like a lot of people are just so close to the product they have that they're more in love with the product and like, oh, we did all this work and we put all this into it, and it's like, yeah, but how does that sort of affect me? And then just all of that, just sort of how it affects me and what's the outcome. And it just reminds me of like some of that Perry Marshall sort of stuff, like, well, people don't care about how fancy your drill is or how much work went into the drill you're selling. They care about like the hole they're going to make with the drill, or the picture they're going to hang with the drill, or just like all those kinds of warm and fuzzies that come from it. And it sounds like if everyone else is trying just the same kind of boring blah techniques, then everyone else is getting that ad blindness. And so if we kind of just like up our game and make things interesting and make things fun and do these things that kind of stand out, then they'll really help us. And so I'm really glad that you mentioned Facebook chatbots, because this was the kind of thing where like I think I've used a couple of other people's chatbots, like to stay notified for some of their updates, and I tried to use some sort of, I don't know, like free tool, maybe Chat Fuel or something, to set up a chatbot, but I wasn't really sure like what I was doing, and I didn't really take it all that seriously. So can you sort of unpack this whole chatbot thing, and first of all kind of tell us like what is it, and what's the big deal about it?
Yeah, so it's a prime example of early stage growth hacking that someone could jump on board with, right? Think about it like this. Email has been around for freaking forever, right? It was like one of the like grandfathers in marketing, online marketing. But the thing is, we're evolving in the way we communicate. We have, to one email that we have about 3 messenger apps on our phone more than half the time. We have our text, we have our Facebook Messenger, and maybe we have like a WhatsApp or Kik or one of these other things, right? More than half the time, there's at least a 2-to-1 ratio of a messenger app compared to Gmail or some sort of email service. And as we're evolving and our consumers are evolving with the technology, right? They're not, email might eventually be super obsolete, where very little activity or warrant or weight is going to be holding onto it, because more than half the time people are on messenger styled apps. So what does that mean? Well, when you go into your email, right, out of 10 emails, there's probably about 7 emails that are sales related. Your inbox is the key indicator that you are in a saturated market if you're email marketing. It's the truth, right? Between the filters that even Gmail's throwing in, you're limiting your chances more and more if you're trying to email market on, to your audience on email, right? So the biggest thing that you want to start identifying how you hack this whole thing, like, all right, if you want to still get your message out to your core audience in an efficient way like email, where it's kind of one-to-one marketing, but you want it to get seen, how could you do that? And the way you do that is through messenger apps, because they're seeing it, they're using it, but you don't have to compete with everyone else who is hitting them up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You're the only one in that space, and you're the only ones that they're going to put their eyeballs on, because maybe now it's not saturated. Maybe later down the road it will be, but then that's why we got to keep being innovative and thinking that next step. But right now, it's getting close to the golden age to it. But the way I would leverage messenger apps, you tie that in with Facebook ads. You kind of like marry the two. You want to look at utilizing your Facebook ads to start building up your, essentially like an email list, but you're building as like a subscriber list. And you develop your workflows inside the chat very similar to how you set it up through email, of like, if this person opens or if this person acts. But the only difference is it feels more natural. You can easily gate and move the conversation of what that person is going through, a lot more personalized than an email funnel that you're basing on opens and clicks. You could actually get a much higher open percentage rate and click-through rates and action rates. Like it's staggering. Like an open rate average is maybe anywhere from 10 to maybe, if you're lucky, 20%, right? Industry average. On Messenger, you're floating around 70 to 90% open rate. And then actions taken after that is around the same mark, maybe 60 to 80, compared to click-through rates on email, which is, even half of what the open rate is, more than half the time. So there's a growing trend in the market that people are willing to be more adaptive on other platforms compared to email. Again, it's probably because people got so used to it. The mental blinders started popping up, like how you don't look at billboards on the road, or how you don't click on display ads on websites. It's just natural human being instincts that we're adapting to ignore certain things. But I highly suggest, it could be any kind of company. It could be even a local painter shop, could develop a chat bot to at least navigate the customer service element of trying to assess like the size of a house and the amount of work that is, and giving them an instant quote and giving that customized convenience for the end user to quickly see what it's going to cost, instead of going through calling someone, waiting on hold, maybe leaving a message, waiting 30 minutes, an hour, or a day to get that message back, or using those, other, websites like Home Advisor and just getting spammed by 8 painters around your neighborhood. There's a way to make things better. And that little growth hack right there in itself is something that whoever takes advantage of it early is going to be reaping the biggest reward later down the road, because they're going to also acquire the most, people into their subscriber list.
And I really like that idea, and I especially like the idea of sort of jumping on Facebook Messenger chat box or whatever the big thing is now, so that by the time everyone else hears about it and everyone else jumps on, then I'll already have a list built up or already be 10 steps ahead, and by the time trying to struggle with step one. Now I'm over on step number 11, and I mean, you're so right about so many things that you just mentioned there, because I mean, it still seems silly to me, like, I mean, just the idea of email in general in this day and age, because I mean, like, sometimes the emails, like HTML emails, come in like not really formatted right, or if they're text emails, they kind of have that word wrap, and it's like, really, in this day and age, we're dealing with like a word wrap, or even like, like text message marketing. It just seems silly. It seems almost like living in the past, that we're dealing with, phone numbers, and dealing with having to send a text blast that takes forever to send out, and we have to make sure to keep it under a certain length. And like this whole Facebook Messenger thing, especially, seems like sort of the future, because it's like has, all the benefits of email, but it's instant, and the benefits of text messages, like you mentioned, like there's that instant delivery and way more open rates, but without sort of the baggage that text message marketing carries with it. And so like I said, Facebook chatbots, I've messed with a few, and I've seen either the ones that say like, well, send us a message, and now you'll be joined on our list, and then when we want to send a broadcast out, we'll just shoot it through Facebook Messenger as opposed to email. And I've also seen the ones like you mentioned a little bit there, where there's sort of like some kind of a logic where you can like send commands and like click on responses and things like that. And so, but I still, like, I kind of looked at it, and I wasn't really totally sure what I was seeing. So can you kind of like tell us, like, what kinds of these messenger chatbots are out there, and what we should be setting up?
Well, the biggest one is, and the whole general concept is, you want to shift from very tactical, one to one. You send something out and you're hoping to get something back in return, but you're not taking the extra X factor that people are just missing out on, which is behavior, right? And we are slowly about to get into an age where we could base our marketing decisions based on behavior of our audiences. And what the Messenger app capabilities are allowing to you to do is to start identifying behavior of your audience, so that way you can actually tailor the messaging, and also the content delivery, and even how you position the close based on what you already know and identify as your customer. Because the biggest thing is, as everyone is doing now, they're putting their list and they're putting their customers into one big bin, right? It's just a big bin, and we're going to say, hey, every one of our 10,000 subscribers are going to like this article. Well, that's really not the case. Maybe a quarter of them likes a very comedic relief side. Maybe one likes a very serious side. Maybe one likes a video. Maybe one likes podcast. Maybe one likes text. We don't know what people like, but you shove it all down their throats, hoping that they do like it. And what ends up happening is that by the end of the 10 emails, they said, screw it. I'm tired of getting spammed because I'm seeing stuff I don't really like. I maybe like one of them, but the other 9 I really didn't care about so much. But what's cool with the chatbot, it's kind of like playing Mad Libs with your customer, right? You're able to say, okay, let me see how they are answering it, and then let me be a chameleon and start angling it if they float in this direction. I could be exactly how they want me to be, or I could give them exactly what they want. It gives the client or the brand or the business owner the leverage to know where and how to pivot. So a good example of this easily could be, let's say a Facebook ad is the delivery method, and instead of having people to click through a website, you ask, your Facebook ad, it prompts them to comment. So let's say, it's around, let's say it's a software, right? And the software, helps for whatever, industry it is, but it helps target, the software has benefits for the business owner, has benefits for maybe the sales team, and has benefits for maybe the marketing team. And the call to action on the ad simply says, hey, if you're struggling with this, and this, tell us, what position you have. If you're a CEO, write CEO. If you're a marketer, write marketer. If you're a sales guy, write salesperson, right? And you're in the comment to receive, like, the way to hack your day to day, whatever it might be. So they put that in, but you already siloed what that specific person is. And then that prompts a chat bot, and that gives them what they need immediately. So there's no kind of opt in. But what's cool with the chat bot is it pulls the information that they wouldn't necessarily needed to fill out in an opt in page. So you cut that area out, which oftentimes is the hardest bottleneck to overcome, which is on your landing page. Then the next element is that this person is a salesperson. You can start asking some good needs analysis kind of questions, so that way you could better understand your customer, which is honestly just takes less than 3 seconds for them to do. It's just them literally clicking a few prompts that come up, and you can make it as entertaining and humanist as possible by throwing funny gifs, some cool images, speaking the tone that you're seeing that they're receptive. It's really a really unique way to communicate, but without also all the labor of manually doing it too.
Awesome, and it sounds like just like the way that people can get on a list sounds like a lot more fun, because like the whole like seeing an ad and clicking on something and leaving Facebook and going to some page and filling in their stuff and waiting for that email and confirming their email sounds like a lot of like a been there done that. But if it's an ad with a prompt to comment and they can kind of identify who they are, and then if the messenger bot kind of opens up a conversation and there are ways for people to narrow down exactly who they are, that sounds a lot more personable without it being sort of labor intensive on the on the creator side, on the person like running those sorts of ads. And as you're kind of explaining that, what comes to mind is I'm starting to think, well, if you were selling something and you kind of had this sort of this split, right? You said there's different kinds of people or different demographics or different answers. Isn't that creating a lot of work? Like if people are kind of siloed like 5, 10 different ways, does that mean we have to send 5 or 10 as many marketing messages through these apps?
No, essentially you're just narrowing the top of the funnel. But the whole entire flow could be very similar. It's just maybe just swapping a word or a sentence around here and there. Whatever the objective is typically stays the same, but just moving into the direction of like talking more in the sense of what they're maybe going through is a little easier than keeping it completely generic.
Okay, so just like plugging in a few words or just using this sort of sparingly, so that way we don't have to write a whole different message, but maybe it's tailored like slightly towards the business owner or slightly towards the marketer.
Yeah, so that way it just relates better to them. Because remember, taking in the beginning of our conversation, people are losing factor to dealing with people. And the more relatable and the more humanist that we could apply to the digital world, the more receptive and the more that the person is going to find it also trustworthy, that they feel like they understand it, they get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking the old style of infomercials, right? When you're up at like 1 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason, and you see the one that is like for weight loss, and it's this like weird thing that you balance on, but apparently it helps make you lose like 50 pounds or whatever. But before they don't even talk about the product too much. Actually, I think for the hour not infographic, the infomercial, they probably talk about the product for 15 minutes. But the other like 45 minutes, they're talking about the customer, what you're going through, why you feel bad, why you feel self-conscious. Susie and how she had 4 kids and now she haven't, how she feels that she couldn't get to how she looked when she was in her 20s. But what that does to the person watching, they're like, man, I am just like Susie, or man, I am feeling like dirt, or man, I actually do have these things. And then when they actually show you the product near the end, after you wasted 45 minutes of being like almost, you know, brain, manipulated by them just being so relatable, you're like, oh man, I need this little weird thing that I'm balanced on. It's going to help make me and all the struggles and the self-consciousness and all that stuff go away. And it works. And it's the reason why I think even why that form of advertising is still around, because they're the only ones who really, truly, truly get it. But with video being adopted on these platforms and all these extra ways to kind of tap and narrow down your audience with the ad targeting, we could adapt what we know worked, but no one's really doing it. And honestly, I think it's because we're just lazy. We became lazy freaking marketers, and it's because it came out, it showed to be effective, and everyone just ran guns blazing without shooting and point aiming and shooting. We just started going point shoot, and then we'll aim and do a bunch of A/B split testings on why we missed the target. And that's just a failed approach of going about it.
Right. I mean, it seems very much like trial and error, guessing check. Sounds like a way to waste a lot of time just in all these different sort of stabs in the dark. And so, I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of possibilities with Facebook Messenger. But when you deal with your different coaching clients and people like that, is there a usual sort of thing you set up for them on Facebook Messenger first? Is there like sort of like an easy button or a low hanging fruit, or just like the something simple people can do with Facebook Messenger chatbots?
Well, the best one is honestly a giveaway. You ever see like those very viral, like you'll see like an RV or a vacation or something like whatever it is, right? But you'll see a page and you'll see like 1,000 comments, a bunch of likes, a ton of shares, and the image is like, if you want to win this RV, just comment on the box, like it or share it, and you'll win your chances. But honestly, I never understood if they actually do give it away. But for all I know, people freaking love that stuff, right? But the missing ingredient is what these people are not doing, and this is where my growth hacker mindset kind of kicks in. I was like, geez, imagine if they actually tagged a chat bot to that. So every person who commented, that was the way they enrolled. And then they're building up a list, like an email list. So they got all those 10,000 people who commented it, which, mind you, when someone comments on a post, it shows up on their feed through all their friends. So then they see it, and it can really start to compound over time. But regardless, if they switch it up and then put a chat bot on a giveaway, so they had the way they enrolled was to comment, and they could do the like and the share, but you could set up all those actions for the chatbot to register them, so that way it gets them enrolled. That could be the way that you can build your email list, and then you can start building a funnel from that. And then you already identify that these people fit this sort of demographic, and maybe you could throw a different product or service and upsells and downsells and all that good stuff. But if anything, at least supply content to pepper them for the close.
Awesome. And as you're explaining all this stuff, I'm just hearing a lot of like sort of like Robert Cialdini sort of keys to influence is in here as far as like the have them give you a little bit of information. That way, there's that likability, there's that sort of relatable stuff, and then some of these micro commitments where people might not have filled in all these things, or they might not have identified themselves so specifically, but because they just kind of make all these short, small commitments, they do the comments, and then it leads to the message, and then there's some sort of prompts and things like that they can click on. They end up further along than they would have been otherwise, and then now that you have the information, you can kind of relate to them more and get them to pay attention more. And it sounds like just by having a tool like this, you can just walk them up and sort of like it seems like it pays off in a lot of different ways, right? Because it gets them to interact more, and then it makes you more relatable to them, and they interact more and more on the internet. It sounds like a really great sort of technology that people should be tapping into before it gets too crowded, and then before it becomes time to move on to the next thing. And so, with this Facebook Messenger chatbot sort of thing, is this a service that you provide? Is this a thing that you set up, or do you have a course? Or if people like this idea about Facebook chatbots, do you have a place where someone can go to find out more about this?
Yeah, actually, one of the things with giving you a little background on my agency, we actually apply this if it's applicable, right, for the client, whatever the objective is for our client, bundled with all the other things that we know is going to be necessary, like Facebook ads and if there's content creation and stuff like that. So our agency is really built as this like all in one, inclusive kind of marketing channel for a brand or a owner to leverage. So it's not like one of those things where if we were just building a chatbot for you, yeah, that's great and dandy, but you need so many other things to make that chatbot run well. Or you may be focused on this area, but you're not hedging your efforts to help drive traffic in other ways. So if anyone was interested to like explore if it's a good fit for them or wanted to explore other ways that we could work together, I definitely encourage them to reach out to me even directly. I could give you my calendar link and we could put that into the show notes so that way we could talk about it. And but mainly we could discuss like how I operate and how I work, and it's actually one of those things that you get a lot for your buck. And if it's applicable, chatbot, Facebook ads, viral blog creation, all that good stuff is all bundled into one price.
Super great, and thanks for clearing that up. That this whole thing of a chatbot is sort of a great small idea, but on its own, it's not really useful. But if it's combined with all these other things that are working, like with the Facebook ads and the content creation, it's a really sort of powerful thing to boost everything else. And so, as far as like websites and stuff like that, can you tell us where to find your agency's website? And if that calendar link is easy, maybe just read it on here for us.
Yeah, sure. So people can find me my agency site at second, spelled out, flight, and that's like a flying airplane, flight consultancy.com. So secondflightconsultancy.com. And my calendar link is very easy. Just can't mess up my last name, which a lot of people like to spell it with a C, the traditional way, but it's with a K. So there's just a little heads up on that. But it's meet, MEET, me, me dot so/Nick, NICK, Kullin, KULLIN. So meet me dot so/Nick Kullin, and that would open up the web page or whichever way you're looking at it, even on your mobile device. My calendar which shows my available dates and times, and you could simply find a date and time that works for you, and I'll make myself available so that way I can speak with you guys, because I love to I love to hear the stories and find any way to add value to these people's lives. So I'm very encouraging to it.
Super fantastic. So make sure that you guys go to secondflightconsultancy.com. That way you can see Nick's agency website and see what they have going on. And then if you're ready to pull the trigger, if you want to meet with Nick and sort of tell him your needs and tell him where you're stuck and tell him what sort of ideas you have, and maybe it could be this Facebook chatbot stuff or social media or just something new and creative and fresh that kind of stands out compared to everyone else who's sort of just writing all the coattails and copying and not really being innovative. All that stuff sounds boring. What sounds a lot more exciting is for Nick and his team to do these new, maybe sort of Wild West sort of things on the frontier that pay off really well now before everyone else sort of ruins it for the rest of us. So if you're ready to meet with Nick, you can see what his calendar availability is like by going to meetme.so/Nick Kullin. That's NICKKULLIN. Kullin with a K, not a C, as Nick said. And so make sure that you guys go to secondflightconsultancy.com and meetme.so/Nick Kullin. So I want to thank you so much, Mr. Nick, for stopping by and sharing what you had to share with us as far as innovating, being creative, chatbots, and so much more. So thanks for stopping by.
No, not a problem, man. I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. So thank you again.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at robertplank.com/iTunes and like us on Facebook at robertplankshow.com.